Blended families and step families face a unique set of challenges as they seek to follow Christ together. Join me and my special guest for this important conversation today on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Rienow, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. I want to introduce you to a friend and a special guest today, Ron Deal. Welcome to Family Vision.
Brother, man, it's good to be talking with you again and working with you again. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Ron, we're going to be talking about blended families and step families today. But before we dive in, can you just tell us a little about your family?
Well, you know, a lot of people get into ministry out of their own personal family background. This ministry for me is not that. There are other things that Nan and I do that are definitely personal. But blended family ministry is not my life story. So I grew up in an intact home. My parents were married 61 years when my mom passed away. I have 3 siblings. They're all in first marriages. Nan and I have been married for 38 years, almost 39 years. And we have 3 boys. We had a tragedy of our own, and when our middle son, Connor, passed away at the age of 12, that's now been 15 and a half years that we have walked out that grief, ugly journey. But blended family is not my life, but early on in my ministry, doing marriage and family stuff, looked around and said, we need to work with single-parent families and step families, just like we're working with everybody else. And so I started, and 30 years ago, Rob, 31 years ago, I stumbled my way to start doing step family ministry. And for the last about 18 years of my life, it's been exclusively what I have done. And so working now with FamilyLife, run a department called FamilyLife Blended, where we produce resources and events and tools and for churches and for couples. And so it's what I know. It's what I love to do.
Thanks, Ron, and thanks for sharing about Connor too. I know I've appreciated how you have let people in to that journey of grief, and I know for so many who have who are missing children in this life, one of the big areas we're looking forward to eternity, being reunited together. You and Nan and Amy and I got to spend a little time together. Amy and I have gone on one cruise in our 30 years of marriage, and we went on the Family Life cruise, and
it was our cruise.
And Nan, we had a great time. You know, you used a phrase when you talked about growing up. You said I was in an intact family, and I was not in an intact family. My parents got divorced when I was 15. But I even came from a more complicated background even before that. My mother was my father's 4th wife, and my father was my mother's 2nd husband. So they had step and blended. You know, I went to college. I'm studying psychology, and they want me to do my family tree, right, to learn family systems and attachment and all this sort of stuff.
You had a family forest, as we like to say.
I don't even know how to do it. There's all these different symbols they're supposed to give you for these different relationships, and it was just a mess. But also, the longer we've done ministry, and I'm going back, I guess, to those early years of training, they used to use this phrase, intact families and broken families. And of course, as I'm sitting there in psychology class, well, I guess I'm in the broken family category. And something we have decided to do or seen over our years of ministry is really to recognize every family is a broken family in the sense that every family is really needy. And
every person
hurting.
is a broken person.
And a whole bunch of broken people needing God's grace and God's mercy every day. So today we are going to talk about blended families, step families, and you have helped so many families around the world just grow and thrive through the mess and the web and the challenges and the changes. Can you just start off giving us sort of some statistics, helping us understand how common this is as far as remarriages or parents parenting stepchildren and all those different dynamics?
So here's one snapshot. If you look at individuals, 350 million Americans in the United States, 1/3, actually 35% of every man, woman, and child, that's 113 million people, have a step relationship. They can reach out and touch. And it's a close relationship, step parent, step sibling, or step child. That does not include step grandparents. Now, quick story. I have a 25-year-old son who has dated two women in the last couple of years. Both of those women have never been married before, but they each have a child. So they had a child by a relationship. And so if my son were to marry these young ladies, then I would become a step grandparent. That's not counted in the 113 million Americans. If you stop and think about it, we like to say another 100 million Americans know and love somebody who is in a stepfamily relationship of some sort or another. So that's a whole lot. That's 2/3 of the U.S. population can connect to this thing that we're talking about. Here's another snapshot of parents raising children. 40% of those households have a stepchild, step-parent relationship. The child may be with you sometime, full-time, part-time, whatever that combination is, 40%. One more stat I'll throw at you. Of first marriages, giving birth to a new household, it surprises a lot of people to learn that of all first marriages in the U.S. today, if one of those two partners is 30 or above, 25% of those first marriages are forming a blended family. Somebody's bringing a child into that relationship, whatever the backstory is, by death, by divorce, by the breakup of a relationship. Somebody has a child, and now there's a step-parent, stepchild dynamic going on in that household. It's a lot of people, Rob. It's a lot of people can reach out and touch this. And of course, the U.S. sort of leads the world, if you will, but other countries are not far behind. We're working with Australia and the UK, people in Africa, all across Asia. They're beginning to see a growing segment of their population, what they call step families around the world. And so it's very, very common.
Okay, Ron, a couple comes to you. Doesn't really matter to me how old they are. We'll just pick they're in their 30s. Maybe one or both of them have been married before, or like you said, are bringing children into the relationship. They are engaged and they're both believers. They are about to enter this step blended world, and they come to you, they come to Nan, and they say, we want to thrive as a new Christian blended family. Where do we start? What would you say are some of like essential foundation points?
First of all, I'm going to say, good. Walking with God, He's going to help you to be love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And you're going to need every bit of that in your new marriage. And He's a God of redemption and second chances. And so make sure that faith journey is tight and strong for you in your relationship with the Lord, because you're going to have some challenges. By the way, we have a resource called Preparing to Blend, which is basically a do-it-yourself premarital book for couples who are engaged, planning to get married, and it doubles as a leader's guide for church leaders who want to do pre-blended family counseling. They should do it a whole lot differently than they do it with a first-time married couple, and this book empowers that. So I'm going to help this couple see that if you're like most people, you assume coupleness is all you need. I like making up words, Rob. I hope you don't mind. Coupleness is all you need. Well, what is that? Well, that's, your marriage, and premarital counseling historically, by the way, is all about coupleness. We help husband and future wife figure out how they're going to be a happily married couple. And that makes sense when there's no children involved in the picture. But when it comes to blended families, what is also equally as important is understanding familyness. Familyness is the journey that this blended family
It's not a word either, Ron.
It is now. It's the journey that they're going to go on to figure out how to love one another, like one another, bond, connect, develop a sense of emotional safety with each other, trust. That's familyness, right? So what most people underestimate is, well, we love each other. Our coupleness is good. We're planning to get married. Great. That's awesome. But if you don't work on familyness, a lot of blended family couples, unfortunately, they marry because they've fallen in love with one another, a person, but they divorce because they don't know how to be a family. That's what we help them do, is learn everything involved in this blended family journey. So just quick snapshot. We can break it down if you want, but the marital stuff matters, yes. And so does parenting and the step-parent. Now, one's a bio-parent, one's a step-parent with the other person's children. Maybe they're both step-parents too, if they both bring children. Lots of complexity tied up with that. There's often another household. So there's a co-parent living somewhere else. That's a third dynamic that can unravel their marriage if they don't know how to navigate that space. You have children who are dealing with more change, more transition, unwanted transition, which is a loss in their book. So I love that my mom loves this guy, but man, does it create more change for me. Now I got a stepbrother who wants to play with my stuff. I got to share my bedroom, and I never had to do that before. Like, whatever those unwanted changes are, accumulate for children. And that can get in the way of their heart of bonding with the new step people, step siblings, stepdad, stepmom, whatever the case is. And so you have grief and loss as it plays out in attachment and bonding within the new family. We have old traditions, figuring out the new family traditions. We have old food styles and cooking and what we used to do for dinner. And now we have a new person who's influencing that in the kitchen. And what's this new stuff? And I don't really like it. And everything involved in all of those layers hits on day one, right after the wedding.
You said something that I want to go back and ask a question about, and it would be even before this new marriage or even before this new engagement. I want to go back to when a parent, let's say after the death of a spouse or after a divorce, X number of perhaps years have gone by, and that parent is now open to dating again. Mm-hmm. How do they, and they have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. How could a parent even broach that subject? Because once that parent brings some man that she just went out to dinner with or woman back to the house to meet the kids or whatever it might be, there are so many emotions and difficulties that go with that. How could a parent have conversations with their kids even about that process?
Okay. First of all, let me just mention we have a resource for that. It's called Dating and the Single Parent. And it walks people through that entire process, from even thinking about dating again to how do I include my kids and what does this look like and what kind of decisions are we making and how do we decide whether we're going to live together for the rest of our lives. One of the strategies I recommend in that book is have what-if conversations with your children on a regular basis throughout your family journey. So let's say you came through death and a spouse is deceased and it's been a couple of years and now mom is thinking about dating again. For her to just say over dinner one night with her kids, hopefully long before she's ever actually doing it. All right, 12 and 14-year-old, what if I were to date again? How would you guys feel about that? And what she's doing with this is she's probing, she's looking, she's examining, she's opening dialogue with her children. She's making it a two-way street of communication about what might happen in their world. And she's looking for information. I mean, some kids will go, oh, Mom, I think that'd be fabulous. Yeah, wonderful. And then the day Mom does it, they turn on a dime and go, yeah, man, I don't like this at all. And that's because kids don't always know what they feel. They don't always know until it's real. Right? And so they can anticipate that really there's a part of them is happy for mom. There's another part of them that is really unhappy about this and they're missing dad. And so they feel like this new thing is a comment on the old, the pain that we're still carrying. And so it's jumbled up and confusing. But when mom introduces the subject with the what if conversation, it shows respect, mutuality, and they feel like they have a voice. Keep in mind, kids often don't have a voice in all of the stuff that's going on around them. They didn't have a voice in whether dad died or not, obviously. So now anytime you can give them some voice, you want to do that. So that's one conversation. Then the day comes where mom's actually thinking about going on a date. What if I were to go on a date this Friday night while you guys are at the football game? How would you feel about that? All right, she just went on that date. Now, what would you think if I dated him again? You guys haven't met him yet, but you heard a little bit about how it went. What do you think if I did that again? See, what if conversations? She's keeping them engaged in the journey with her. The big mistake that single parents make, or somebody dating a single parent, is the idea that coupleness is the only thing that matters. If I'm the one who's fallen in love with this person, it doesn't really matter. Oh, yes, it does. Absolutely. Because the kids are the familyness factors. And so if you forget them, when a single parent moves on as if their opinion doesn't matter, well, then you're excluding them from your life. You're giving them more loss, more feeling small and unappreciated, unvalued, and not considered. And that just builds up resentment, anger, pain for kids, which ripples out in all kinds of ugly ways. And so bringing them into the journey, you are not giving them permission to tell you whether or not you can date. You are not asking their permission whether you can ever get married again. You're still the parent. But I think foolish is the parent who ignores the fact that their children are on this journey with you. And so engaging in that sort of dialogue educates you, informs them, gives them a clue. Hey, this might be coming. It sort of helps them see what might happen. Like they need a little notice on something like that. Again, life didn't give them notice before Dad died. We want to give them as much notice as we can about how life is going to move on from this point forward. And even with all of that, you may get to the point where everybody's confident. This is actually a pretty common story we hear. Everybody's confident. The kids are on board. We're feeling great. We're engaged. We go through the engagement season. The wedding happens, and all of a sudden we see tears, or we see some measure of unacceptance, if you will, about the new family marriage, unhappiness about it. And then parents say, did I make a mistake? What happened? Did we miss something? Well, the truth is, until it's real in a very tangible way, you don't always know what you feel. Kids certainly don't know that. Adults don't often know that. So there's something about the reality of it all that hits pretty hard. So no, you didn't make a mistake. But yes, we're going to tune back into the kids. We're going to talk. We're going to hear them out. We're going to try to meet them where they are and lovingly invite them into what's happening. So it's a give, it's a take, it's a journey, and you're just trying to bring them along with you.
Okay, Ron, I'm going to ask you another question in just a minute, and it's going to be sort of a sticky one of who comes first, my spouse or the kids. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to set that up in a second. But before we get there, you've mentioned a few resources. We're going to put links to all those things in the show notes. But I want you to tell people how they can get connected with your ministry and get the resources and be thriving as a Step or Blended family. And then I want to ask you this question.
Okay, FamilyLife.com/blended. That will get you to our section, FamilyLife.com/blended. We have audio, we have video, we have social media, we have live events, we have virtual events, we have a YouTube channel, we have products and resources, books, small group tools, you name it. The largest, most popular small group video series is free. We make that available for free through Rienow Media. People can get us connected to that. Just come see us, FamilyLife.com/blended.
Okay, so here's this question, Ron, and it starts with really easy theology, but then the theology gets muddied when we move it into practice, right? A person's first priority should be their relationship with God. If they're married, their spouse. If they have children, their children, then their extended family and their neighbors and their church, et cetera, et cetera. But what happens, let's say that a mom is married and has children, and there is a divorce, and then a number of years later, she gets remarried. Well, she had a covenant calling and responsibility to these children before. She now has a covenant calling and responsibility to her new husband. Mm-hmm. So how does that order get affected by the history, and how does that play out? Does that question make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and it's actually a critical question, especially within the Christian community where we have so much mindfulness about this. It matters to people, and it comes into play when it's time to make parenting decisions, parent, step-parent, and wait a minute, it feels like you're supporting your kids over me, your spouse, and our marriage. That's where this really comes to a head. And so here's the answer, and I'm going to give it to you, and then I'm going to explain it. Your spouse is absolutely the most important adult in the world when you marry somebody. And your kids remain the most important children in the world when you have now married somebody. That sounds like a double answer, but it's really not. See, when we say God first, your spouse second, and your kids third, that in a biological family unit, that actually makes sense to everybody because we're saying a lifelong till death do us part covenant to a spouse, and your children don't mind that you have made that covenant to your spouse because that's their other parent. Children don't mind being, quote, third because all is well and right with the world when mom and dad love each other. It's in their best interest for mom and dad to be happy. We're going to move out and move away and become adults on our own, and mom and dad are going to care for each other until someone passes away in old age. Nobody feels slighted in that dynamic. In a blended family, however, it is very much upside down. And so the bio-parent relationship with their kids, keep in mind, a single parent who's now dating, they have been through hard with their children, death, divorce, whatever that they've been in the foxhole of life. They've survived together. They've bonded. They've held on to each other. And the home takes on a new structure when you lose a parent. It's sort of like that oldest kid becomes a co-parent in some ways. And, things shift within the home, and the children are central. I don't ask my spouse what we're having for dinner. I ask the kids what we're going to have for dinner. They pick the movie. Like, there's all kinds of little moments in which children are elevated, if you will, to the front seat of the car with the driver. When there's another parent in the house, the parents sit in the front seat of the car, the kids sit in the back seat of the car. So now all of a sudden, mom or dad's dating somebody and now marrying somebody and putting them in the front seat. Whoa, wait a minute. What does this mean for me as a child who's already been through lots of loss? Feels like I have another loss going on in my life. So you can see how that creates a competition for the biological parent. The step-parent and the children essentially are competing for the bio-parent. In fact, one of the things that we know, paradoxically, that helps couples be successful in blended families is when the biological parent carves out intentional time to hang out and invest in their bio-children without the step-parent. In the early season, first year or two of the family's journey, it's extremely helpful for the kids to have mom again, just like we had mom for 6 years before he showed up. Those moments where we sit and do a puzzle, where mom sits on the bed at night and we talk to the ceiling together, where we get to go feed the ducks on Saturday for an hour, just us, that actually furthers the children's receptivity to the new step-parent, who is now taking mom most of the time, but we still get her some of the time. It's that combination of investing in kids and in the new spouse all at once that makes for a good picture and a healthy blended family journey. So there is a shift in allegiance to the new spouse, but it doesn't come at the demise of the children.
Friends, I hope that this conversation with Ron Deal has been helpful for you today. Maybe you've also been thinking of a friend or a family member saying, boy, I wish they could hear this. Take a minute right now, push the share button, text them the link to this show. We want to help as many families around the world hear this message so that no matter our backgrounds, wherever we are right now in our family relationships, we can be pursuing oneness and pursuing Christ. Ron, I want to thank you for being a part of the Family Vision podcast today. We're going to come back. We're going to do part 2. I've got questions for you. How do we deal with sending a child to a non-believing parent for every other weekend? Or how do you deal with unjust courts? Or what should kids call their new step-parent? Or I want to be like a father, but I'm not a father. How do I be father-like? We're going to talk about all of those dynamics. We would also love to see you. Amy and I would love to see you at an upcoming live Visionary Family Conference. These are happening all over the country. Go to visionaryfam.com, click the events button, find out when we are coming to a city near you. We would love to see you. And as always, we're looking forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.